Hello and welcome to this introduction on the Smart Irrigation integration for Home Assistant. I'm Jeroen Heert. I'm the creator of this integration, and in this video series I'll give you an overview of the integration, how to set it up and how to configure it. So let's jump in. So the Smart Irrigation integration effectively calculates irrigation duration up to the second. So you don't waste water, but you also don't provide too little. You can apply this for anything that needs water, like lawns or greenhouses or indoor gardens or what have you. So the integration is built around the concept of evapotranspiration, which basically means moisture leaving the soil during the day through wind and solar radiation and temperature might be replenished by precipitation like rain or snow, right? So rain adds to the soil, and then wind and temperature and sun reduce the value of moisture in the soil. So if the value is below zero, you would actually have to add more moisture to the soil by irrigation. If it's above zero, you don't have to, because there's more moisture being added than was subtracted by the weather patterns, right? So the idea here is that smart irrigation keeps a bucket per zone that keeps track of exactly how much moisture you might want to add. Now, in contrast to real buckets, these buckets can also contain negative values. So if it's a negative value, that means that more moisture was removed from the soil that was added, so you would have to replenish it using irrigation. So if it's a negative value, we'll calculate up to the second how long to run your irrigation system for. If the bucket is equal or larger than zero, there's more moisture that was added to the soil than was subtracted, so you don't need to do irrigation. Now you can decide when you want to irrigate. This integration does not control your valves, and that's on purpose. So you decide when you want to irrigate. So you can have, for example, an irrigation on Monday and Thursday, or whenever it is above a certain value, below a certain negative value, want to irrigate. Just remember, when you irrigate, reset the bucket to zero so we can start the cycle over again. Okay, so what does this integration do and not do? Well, it calculates exactly how long to run your irrigation for based on weather data. It doesn't control your valves, and it doesn't perform the irrigation for you. It doesn't control how often you want to irrigate. All of that is up to you, and that's on purpose. So once you set this up, and I'll show you that in a second, how to actually set it up. Each zone is representing a group of, let's say, sprinklers for your lawn, which is normally tied to one valve. And each zone has some properties like throughput and size, which we'll see, and it has a related module and sensor groups. So modules are calculation modules that take weather data that was collected through sensor groups and calculate the difference in the bucket for that day. So each module and sensor group can be used in more than one zone, and then each sensor group collects the weather data from, let's say, a weather service or open weather map, as we'll see, or from your weather station, which then is passed to the zone, which the zone then passes to the calculation module to calculate exactly the evapotranspiration, which is the change in the bucket value for that zone. And then if the bucket is below zero, that value is then being used to calculate any required irrigation duration for that zone specifically. Okay, so now let's look at how to set this up. So here we are in Home Assistant, and as any integration, after you installed it through hacks or whatever, you can basically go in and search for the integration. So I'm going to search for Smart Irrigation. There we have it. Then you have to specify a name, which is a unique name for Smart Irrigation. You can only have one installed, so pick the right name. And then you can choose whether or not you want to use Open Weather Map. So we deeply integrate with Open Weather Map, but you don't have to use it. You can absolutely specify your weather station or local weather service. I absolutely recommend doing that, because nothing gets more specific than something you actually measure in your backyard when you have a weather station. But I also recommend you leave this enabled, because you can mix and match. You can compare Open Weather Map with your own weather station. So do all kind of interesting things. Also, the PyEdo module, as we'll see, will have forecasting, which is dependent on the weather data information from Open Weather Map. So if you want to use forecasting, you would have to have this enabled. Now, submit. The next step, if you have Open Weather Map enabled, you will have to enter your API key, and then you have to specify the API version. Now my key is pretty old, so that's why I select 2.5. If you're just starting, your brand new key will be 3.0, so make sure you select that version. By the way, if you set up the API key on the Open Weather Map, You today have to enter payment information like a credit card. Don't worry about it, because the usage of this integration will not be that much that you will actually have to pay for anything. So set it up for 2.5. In my case, hit submit, and that's it, we're done. So now you can check that it was actually loaded by going to the panel over here, which is the Smart Irrigation panel, and that's where you do most of the configuration, the actual setup of the component, the integration. So in the next video, we're going to take a first look at that. We're going to look at the general settings and the zones, and in the subsequent videos, we're going to look at modules and sensor groups, and then finally, we're going to look at how to work with automations to put this all together and actually put it to work and change and turn on and turn off your valves. So stay tuned for the next video.